what's amazing too is that just having the 2.5 days of training, it's like being in a new culture. It's like the way we are with each other, the way we treat each other, the way we speak and articulate. It's like, and it's really natural. You know, integrity and self-expression and self-love and compassion is really natural. And when you do it, and even for 2.5 days, then we go home and it's like the next thing we know, we're talking to other people like, it's like it just becomes like second nature, holistic, spiritual, mental, emotional, you know, and relational. A lot of what we're doing too is practicing what we call self-awareness, not just what's happening in our physical body, but particularly also what's happening in our feelings, what's happening in our mind, and no judgment, no right or wrong. Because the hard part about difficult experiences is they hurt either, or they're scary, or we feel like we're going to be judged, so we resist them. But when we can identify with the part of us that's infinite and eternal, what we call the spiritual part, what can hurt that? You know? So it's much easier than to have what we call the human. We distinguish between our divinity and our humanity. It's easier to have our human experience when we're locating ourselves in the part of us that can just appreciate it all, even when it's hard. You know, even when it's hard. And the powerful part about that is that helps us heal. And what healing is really completing experiences that aren't serving us. We talked a little bit about trauma in terms of probably all of us in some form or fashion as children or somewhere along the line had at least one traumatic experience, which isn't even wrong. Trauma is a part of life. Getting triggered, things like that's a part of life. It's not about not having trauma, but it's about resolving. It's about resolving triggering, resolving trauma. And for many of us, we've had traumas that never got resolved. And we were talking a little bit about, because we didn't, at least in my family when I was a kid, we didn't have mechanisms for resolution. Like nobody in my family really talked about what was real. No one talked about good stuff. So there was no mechanism for resolution. And now I am doing profound deep healing with myself, and have been for a long time, because I have mechanisms for resolution now, which is really relationship. I was just saying, I had a teacher who said we're wounded in a relationship, but we're also healed in a relationship. So whether it be my therapist or good friends or people or in the training where we just sit around and tell the truth about whatever we feel comfortable to tell the truth about, and experience compassion, cry, or whatever we do, stuff gets healed. We've had people have permanent physical healings. We've had people have profound changes in their life, profound relationship changes, amazing things. You can read some of the testimonials online, and again, when we're in a community of people in this for a couple of days, where we can really feel safe to just really be the truth of who we are, and it's in that place where you're like, oh my God, we want everyone we know to be.
Yeah.
We want family. One of the reasons I'm so excited to even just be doing this here tonight, is that just feel bonded and have meaning together. There's a joy in that is just, I don't know, it's a lot of what is rich in my life. So Don, what do you want to share with our guests about the training or your experience in it?
We're very real with each other, and so just knowing that we can be ourselves and really just say, like, this is what's going on with me, and sharing our joys and sharing our sorrows and sharing whatever, and it's just so free. It absolutely changed my life, and I use things that I learned every day, literally every day, and I remember things, that were said, that it stuck with me and really were really powerful for me, and created powerful openings in my mind or in my heart. And one of the things that I also came out with years and years ago was just a clarity around my communications in relationships, and an ability to see more clearly where I was reacting, or where I had a judgment, or where I had an interpretation, or where I had an assumption, or where I had a belief, where I was making something up about the situation that I didn't necessarily know, and that was then causing me distress, or just getting in the way of my relationships in some way, you know, whatever relationship, I mean, friendships, family relationships, I'm not talking about like partners, but just relating to people. And so that was a gift for me, as well as it gave me a freedom in my listening to people, and a freedom, well, a power actually, a strength in my communicating with people that I maybe didn't have or didn't have quite so much. So that was really powerful for me. And no matter what people bring in to the training, you know, whatever their concerns are, whatever kind of personality they have, whatever it is, there is always some growth. And it's such an honor and a privilege to witness that and to be a part of facilitating that in whatever small way I am by being on the team. So it's that, and it's also, I get to do the training every time. And I get to be reminded, you know, of all of these things that I learned, because I think, I firmly believe that part of the human condition is that we forget. We forget the lessons we learned, you know, we forget. And so just like if you want to be physically healthy, you need to have a practice and a discipline. If you want to be emotionally healthy or spiritually healthy or, you know, healthy in any other way, I believe that there has to be a system for one to remind oneself sort of what's true, you know, for us, and what's in our hearts, what's in yeah, what we want out of life, you know. It's just the discipline of remembering and reminding myself and being present to other people discovering their gifts and their treasures within, and being able to let go of whatever blocks are in the way in their life, in whatever aspect of their life, and whatever the block is, you know, because everybody gets something different out of the training, and sometimes just powerful beyond belief, like Sue said. I mean, some of the things, you know, some of the healings that people that occur for them, and you know, we just do what we do, and it's a series of exercises and processes and just different things. You know, we keep it moving, like Sue was saying, and each one builds on the next, and it's not really, some of them might be more individual and introspective, and others might be with a partner in the training, or just in the whole group, and just being together as a group and listening to the other shares and about how people have been impacted by the processes and what they've learned and what they've what's opening up.
But also, even people who, you know, are somewhat expressive, you know, there's an experience that happens in this training. I'm not saying it only happens here, you know, but that in some ways, if you haven't had it, you don't know it exists. So it's a little difficult, you know, to, you know, it can be, like I said, to have this. That's why it's wonderful to again have it be part of a community, or do it with a friend or a partner or somebody, so that you can have someone to share this with. And also, because some of these are tools and skills that, you know, when you learn how to do that, you want to have someone to practice with, ideally, you know. And some of the newer people there, they're younger, and they're taking this back to their families, and it's quite amazing, because one of the things that we've really even strengthened, I would say, about the training in the past year, is that the emphasis on what we call this telling the truth. And we teach three kinds of truth in the training, but the primary one is what we call personal truth, which is that, you know, everybody's personal truth is valid. So like Dan said, Sue, I'm seeing a pink elephant floating on the ceiling, I'd be like, well, that's weird because I'm seeing a blue one. So in other words, it's like regardless of what your experience is, it's completely valid because you're having it. It may not be actually rational, or it may not be a shared experience, but it's still valid. It's like when the little kid says, I'm scared because I feel like the boogeyman's under the bed. That's a real experience for him or her. And so we work with experience by validating it first. if it's a dysfunctional experience, you know, if it's irrational, whatever, we want to change that. But the point in that is that, you know, this level of truth and that the experience that we're working with in terms of how the energy of what we call the truth grounds experience, and where this gets really important is in the dynamics, for example, in a couple, you know, doesn't have to be a couple, but where people are fighting or having disagreements. You know that place where you're in with your friend or your partner or whatever, and you get triggered and you fight or whatever, and you just feel like there's no resolution and you just kind of drop it or go away. But what if can be an experience that really where both people can be completely in their truth, and we can ground the energy. In other words, like, we don't have to keep feeling at odds. We don't have to fight. We don't have to feel like somebody wins, somebody loses. It's very powerful, and I'm finding that some of the newer people in our community have taken their stand, their ability, what they have found in the training, their ability to be in their truth, and know that people don't have to agree with them, and they're taking this energy into, and some of them unfortunately have some very dysfunctional families, and where there's fighting and violence, and they're just being their own truth. And what's amazing about that is it's starting to have a ripple effect with people learning how to wake up and get out of, and many of us, because many of us, we have deep shame, we have, you know, blaming, we have irresponsibility, I mean, all that kind of stuff. But it's amazing how there's a ripple effect and families are getting healed.
Because you feel like a new person, really. I mean, you feel different, you feel like a new person. You have new learning, you have new insights,
Your vibration has changed.
You're a new
degree.
person.
I mean, we can't know for everybody.
Yeah, of course, right. But I can absolutely tell you that I have a relationship with my mother, for example, that I would not have had otherwise.
And one of the other things we teach, which a lot of this comes from the NVC nonviolent communication work, is we're coming from the point of view too that underneath everything we do, we're all just in every moment trying to get a precious need. And all kinds of needs, not just our physical needs, but appreciation, being loved, admired, connected with, spent time with, you know, and they're all just precious needs, and we're all just in every moment trying to get a precious need met. And we deserve to, you know, and we don't always get it met, you know, and we talk about wounding and how wounding, you know, trauma and all that, right? You know, we teach in the training how that all happens and how to resolve it. Because I believe wounding is when we didn't get needs, you know, actually hurt and pain is when we didn't get needs met. Wounding is when we have now turned it into, well, I don't deserve it. We have now created a reason for our pain. We have created, you know, something like, I don't deserve it, I'm not worth it. And yes, it's like creating a belief, and we call it a wound because it sets in, you know, and it's not true, but it was, and again, we really teach it how that happened, because a lot of times as children, we didn't have a lot of power in the world. And our world was, like I said, our family system or whatever. We didn't have the power, so if we were told no, or there wasn't resources, or we were neglected, or we were abused, like we were dominated, you know, the natural human response to some form of threat is fight, flight, or freeze. And we rather like you couldn't fight, because we weren't going to win, we couldn't leave. So in a way, the only option was to freeze, which means to succumb to the pain. And then the way we managed the pain was to create a belief about why it existed, so that we could go on. And it's a sad state of affairs, but it creates depression, you know, it creates anxiety, it creates, you know, all kinds of stuff that can be healed when we start opening this stuff up and looking and realizing, because, and this is what I was sharing earlier, that the healing I'm doing in my own, because who I was as a child is not who I am now, and the resources I had available to myself as a child are different than what I have people now, and I can speak now, and I can leave if I want, you know, so any of the places where I got stuck because I couldn't get those needs met, I went into, as human beings, helplessness, lack of hopelessness, that kind of stuff. This doesn't have to be true now. It doesn't have to be true at all. We teach what we call possibility thinking. We don't have to just go into, well, it's no use. We can think of possibility. We can make requests, like you said. We can be direct, and so we can get our needs met. And when we get our needs met, then we're not abandoned. And we certainly don't have to have a recurring pain that turns into a wound, like, well, I just don't deserve it, or I'm no good, that kind of thing. So stuff can really get healed. It's pretty amazing. As we have already said, we can't change other people. We can't necessarily, we can make requests. We do teach relationship dynamics about how to create positive. You know, if we're not in relationships where we're just triggering each other and fighting or going away and not relating, how to actually create a positive. There are teachings that can really create how we create a positive, sacred, functional relationship. And it doesn't mean all the triggering goes away. It just means we know how to resolve the triggering when it happens, you know? Because conflict, confrontation, upset is going to happen in relationship. It's the people that know how to resolve the conflict, the confrontation, the upset that have long-lasting, satisfying relationships. And relationships run deep, you know, it triggers deep stuff, you know, and our ability to manage that, and that's a lot of what the training is, you know, some of the self-awareness stuff, so that we can not only have a better relationship with ourselves, but then we actually try to have a relationship with somebody else in various capacities, how we can get much more functional.